So Jonathan asks, in regards to production, which is better, starting doing everything production yourself, like Apologia Center, shout out to the homie Apologia Center, or wait and hire people from the beginning, similar to the basement? I think it depends on, one, how much have you already accomplished? How much life experience do you have? How much money do you have, right? Because you're always going to be trading something. You're going to be trading your time, or you're going to be trading your money. Eventually, if you don't have money, you got to trade your time. You're going to have to immerse yourself in doing all of it yourself initially, which is what I did. I had no problem doing it because I saw the bigger picture. So I would say initially, if you don't know what your value is, you're going to have to do time. Figure out the time. Now, if you go and build a $100 million company like Alex Hormozi did, well, then you could pivot and go into selling your money, using money to buy back your time and hiring a full production team. But if you don't have the money, don't let that inhibit you from starting something, right? So again, in Tim Ross's case, he maybe didn't have the money 3 years ago, so he just did Upsetting the News himself and shot it and edited it himself. I don't know if he didn't have the money. I don't want to speak on his finance like that, but he was willing to just do what he could with what he had initially. And then down the road, there was the team that came together, and then he could afford to pay them. I think in his case, it was $16K for 90 days, which was a steal, by the way. That's a bargain. A lot of people that are already successful, like here's like all my buddies who are already popping with YouTube channels and have businesses, I always recommend them. Just go hire a team. Just go hire the team. They could show up. They could set everything up. They could do it. You could have your show scripted out and you could just rock, right? Or whatever. I think that's substantially better than you don't have the money, you don't have the time, and you're too cheap to spend the money. That's the worst. If you ain't got the money and you're too cheap to spend, if you don't got the time and you're too cheap to spend the money, well, then you're not going to get anything done. Or if you have the time and you don't have the money, but you're too lazy to spend the time, you're not going to get anything done. Now, the hard part about all this is sometimes you don't have the time or the money. What the heck do you do then? I don't have the money to go hire a team. I don't have the time either because I work a full-time job. I'm a mom, I'm a dad, XYZ. What do you do then? You might have to be self-aware enough to know, well, maybe this isn't the season for me to start the podcast. Here's a wild example. If you just had a baby, probably not the ideal time for you to start a podcast. If you just started a new job that's requiring 50 hours because you're onboarding, 50 hours a week, and you got a family, might not be the best time to start the thing. You see what I'm saying? So I think it depends on what season you're in, what access do you have, and that's okay. But there's a difference between not actually having the time and thinking you don't have the time. If you are in a bowling league, if you're in a basketball rec league, if you're playing video games a bunch, if you're watching 30 hours of Netflix a week, which is by the way what the average person spends consuming content, 30 hours a week. You're doing all that and you're saying you don't have the time? Or here's an example. I got a family member. He doesn't have the time to learn how to do video editing so he can come over here, work with us, and make more money. Why? Because he's spending most of his time driving an hour or having to take a bus to a train an hour to go and work somewhere for $15 an hour. And I'm like, bro, what are you doing? You need to stop driving as far to that job when you get a job that's 5 minutes away from your house, and you could make the same amount of money and get back some of your time because you're not spending an hour and a half of it on the train sitting there doing nothing, right? And now you got the time to actually do something else. A lot of us are terrible at how we use our time, which goes back to what we talked about earlier, which is Parkinson's law. Parkinson's law. What you allocate for to complete a task is usually what will that task take. If you say, man, I don't have any time, well, how are you spending that time? What are you doing with that time? How are you managing your time? So I would say it really depends on all those factors. Do you have the money? Probably should just hire. Do you have the money and the life experience? Probably should just hire a team. Do you have the life experience but no money? You should do it yourself. If you don't have either, you should reevaluate the season that you're in and or how you're using your time. And guess what? Sometimes you got to cut stuff out. You might have to cut stuff out. You might have to scale back that bowling league. You might have to scale back going to church 4 times a week. Some of you guys are like, I'm at church 4 times a week. Cool, man. You can't do that and start a podcast at the same time. Can't do that and start a small business at the same time. Maybe you go to church once a week. Maybe you go twice a week, from 4 times a week, twice a week. Maybe you can't serve every Sunday. You're going to have to tell them you got to serve every other Sunday. Can't serve the youth every Wednesday. You got to serve every other Wednesday, right? And so I think that's the tension. You got to reevaluate. And it's because I think sometimes good things can get in the way of the things you're supposed to be doing in that season. Good things like serving, in a local church. Good things like being in a basketball league or being in a bowling league. Those are all good things. There's nothing wrong with those things. But if those things are inhibiting and getting in the way of you building whatever it is you want to build, then you're playing yourself. Or you don't really want to build the thing and you're just talking, which I meet a lot of people like that too. There's a lot of folks I meet, Jonathan, unfortunately, that aren't really being genuine with this question. They see something, they're inspired by it, but they haven't counted the cost on what it takes to actually build something, to actually start a YouTube channel, start a business podcast, to start a t-shirt line, to start a smoothie shop, and they haven't really thought it through and counted the cost. So now we're chasing butterflies. Those are the most frustrating people to talk about. Right? And the last thing I would say, probably should have been the first thing, is what are we solving for? Somebody came up to me at a church I was at, and they knew that I did YouTube, and they asked me, well, how you're the YouTube guy, right? And I was like, yeah, I do YouTube. They're like, how can we get more views on our YouTube? We stream the church. And I'm like, what does that mean? What are we solving for? What are we solving for? Well, we get about 50 people to watch the YouTube on of the Sunday live stream across Facebook and YouTube. Okay, cool. So the problem, so in me talking to them, their problem that they were trying to solve for was actually much simpler. All they wanted to do was just get another 50 people to watch online. So their solution was, hey, take the YouTube live stream of Sunday, chop it down to where just the sermon is, re-upload the sermon on Wednesday. Boom. You took the live and you created another piece of content of just the sermon. You scaled something over. It's actually real simple, real clean. You could do it right inside the YouTube editor. We solved for a problem where we doubled their viewership. That's a W. My solution was, well, they're trying to do what I'm trying to do, and they're not. They're trying to solve for a totally different problem. So again, some of you guys are trying to solve for a different problem. Some of you guys would be pumped with 1,000 subscribers, right? To me, I'm like, yo, this has to generate revenue. I have staff. I have a payroll. I have all these responsibilities. I'm solving for a different problem than you are, right? So that's really again, in counting the cost. What is the objective? What is the problem we're solving for? So hopefully that's helpful, Jonathan. Thank you for the question. Hey, this clip is from our daily after party stream. If you enjoyed it, consider signing up for our Patreon community for only $5 a month, where you get access to the replays of our daily after party streams, as well as the uncut extended versions of our podcast, Discord access that's private, and a discount code for our merch store, only $5 a month. And ultimately, it's the best way to help us contextualize the gospel of Jesus using media, podcasting, and of course, YouTube. The link for that is in the description or in the pinned comment. The perks are amazing. You should get on there. It's only $5 a month. I'll see you over there, all right? Peace.